A great white shark is one of the most feared predators on Earth. 12 feet long, 600 pounds of muscle and cartilage, rows of serrated teeth replaced continuously throughout its life. Sensory systems so sensitive they can detect the electrical field of a heartbeat from meters away, the scent of blood from miles. The animal that has dominated human fear of the ocean for 50 years. The apex predator, the top of the food chain, the thing that nothing else hunts. When orcas enter the water, great white sharks leave, not cautiously, not after assessing the situation, immediately, tagging data from researchers studying great white populations off the Farallon Islands in California, documented individual sharks that had maintained residency in specific feeding areas for years, sharks that returned to the same locations season after season, that had established patterns of behavior as consistent as any long-term resident animal. When orcas appeared, those sharks left their feeding areas within minutes, and they did not come back, not for weeks. In some documented cases, not for the remainder of the season. The apex predator of human imagination is not the apex predator of the ocean. And the animal that is, the one that made the great white afraid, is not what most people think it is. Not even close. Before this video is over, you are going to understand 4 things about the orca that will completely dismantle the image you came in with. The first is what the orca actually is, because the classification alone changes everything. The second is how it hunts and why the hunting strategies of orcas are unlike anything else in the animal kingdom. The third is the culture, the dialects, the traditions, the teaching, and what it means for how we understand animal intelligence. And the fourth is the captivity story, what we did to this animal, what it did to us, and why the gap between those two things is one of the most important stories in the history of human-animal relations. We start with the name, killer whale, 2 words, both wrong. The orca is not a whale, it is a dolphin, the largest member of the family Delphinidae, which includes bottlenose dolphins, common dolphins, pilot whales, and approximately 35 other species. Its closest relatives are not the blue whale or the sperm whale. They are the common dolphin and the spinner dolphin. The classification in the order Cetacea is shared with whales, which is where the confusion originates, but the evolutionary split between dolphins and baleen whales happened tens of millions of years ago, and the orca sits firmly on the dolphin side of that divide. This matters because dolphins are not what popular culture has made them. Dolphins are not peaceful, gentle, spiritually elevated beings who like humans and want to help them. Dolphins are highly intelligent, highly social, highly cooperative, deeply political, frequently violent predators that live in complex societies organized around long-term relationships, coalitions, alliances, and conflicts. They are the primates of the ocean. Not in terms of genetic relationship, but in terms of the social complexity their intelligence enables. The orca is what happens when you take that template and build it to 30 feet and 12,000 pounds. A large male orca weighs more than 3 times as much as a large male polar bear. Its brain weighs approximately 15 pounds, one of the largest brains of any animal that has ever lived, second among cetaceans only to the sperm whale. The prefrontal cortex, the region associated in humans with planning, decision-making, and social cognition, is proportionally large. The paralimbic lobe, a brain region well developed in dolphins and not present in humans, appears to be associated with emotional processing and social bonding in ways that researchers are still characterizing. The orca is not a whale, it is a 12,000-pound dolphin with a 15-pound brain and a social structure more complex than most human organizations, and it eats everything. Here is the list of prey that orca populations have been documented taking. Fish, every species of commercially significant fish in every ocean where orcas live. Great white sharks, bull sharks, tiger sharks, whale sharks, the largest fish on Earth. Blue whales, the largest animals that have ever existed on this planet, larger than any dinosaur, larger than anything in the fossil record. Gray whales, humpback whales, sperm whales, sea lions, fur seals, elephant seals, walruses, polar bears, documented in at least one case swimming between ice floes. Moose, documented swimming between islands and taken at the surface. Sea turtles, seabirds taken from the surface. Penguins, octopus, rays. There is no large animal in the ocean that orcas somewhere have not been documented eating. But here is what makes this different from simply being a very large, very capable predator. Different orca populations don't eat all of these things, and different populations eat almost none of them. The fish-eating orcas of the Pacific Northwest, the residents, eat almost exclusively salmon, Chinook salmon specifically. They do not eat marine mammals. They have been observed swimming past sea lions without showing any predatory interest whatsoever. Put a resident orca and a sea lion in the same body of water and nothing happens. The mammal-eating orcas of the same region, the transients, now called Biggs orcas after the researcher who first characterized them, eat almost exclusively marine mammals. They do not eat fish. They have been observed passing through salmon runs without feeding. These two populations have overlapping ranges. They have been in contact with each other for thousands of years. The behavioral difference between them is not genetic, at least not primarily. It is cultural. It is learned. It is transmitted from generation to generation through the same mechanism that transmits human cultural practices: observation, imitation, and deliberate teaching. The resident orcas and Biggs orcas are so behaviorally distinct that some researchers have argued they represent separate species. The current scientific consensus does not support full species separation, but the argument itself tells you something about the scale of the behavioral difference. These are animals that look identical and live in the same ocean and do not share a single major prey species. They have made different choices, and they have been making those choices collectively for long enough that the choices have become identity. The hunting strategies are where the orca's intelligence becomes most visible, and they are specific to prey in a way that has no parallel in any other predator. The wave washing technique used by Antarctic orcas hunting seals on ice floes is the most documented example. A seal on an ice floe is safe from an orca that cannot get onto the ice. So Antarctic orcas don't get onto the ice. Instead, a coordinated group of orcas lines up at a distance from the floe and swims toward it in synchrony, creating a wave that washes over the ice surface and either knocks the seal into the water directly or breaks the ice floe into smaller pieces until the seal has nowhere stable to stand. This technique is learned. Calves are brought along on hunts and positioned where they can observe the technique being executed before they are old enough to participate. Researchers have documented what appears to be deliberate instruction, experienced adults executing techniques slowly in contexts where calves are present and watching in a way that is different from how they execute the same techniques when calves are absent. The carousel technique used by Norwegian and Icelandic orcas hunting herring requires multiple individuals coordinating to herd a school of fish into a tight ball near the surface, then using the underwater pressure waves created by tail slaps to stun the fish, after which individual orcas pick off stunned fish from the ball. The coordination required, the positioning, the timing of the tail slaps, the management of the fish ball to prevent it from dispersing, involves multiple animals performing different roles simultaneously in a way that has been described by researchers who study it as one of the most complex cooperative hunting behaviors documented in any non-human animal. The intentional beaching used by Patagonian orcas hunting sea lion pups is perhaps the most dramatic. Individual orcas, typically experienced adults, launch themselves deliberately onto beaches to grab sea lion pups at the waterline, then use a combination of body movement and wave energy to work their way back into the water. This technique is genuinely dangerous. An orca that beaches too far risks being stranded. The technique requires precise reading of wave patterns, precise timing, and a willingness to put the animal in a position of real vulnerability. It is taught to calves through a process that takes years. Calves practice on the sand itself without attempting to take prey until the coordination is developed enough to attempt actual hunting. The great white shark attack, when it occurs, is something else entirely. Researchers studying the few documented cases of orcas killing great white sharks have noted a specific behavior. The orca positions itself alongside the shark, rolls it upside down, and holds it in a position called tonic immobility, a reflexive paralysis that sharks enter when inverted, equivalent to a freeze response. The shark, immobilized, cannot fight back. The orca then opens the shark's body cavity to access the liver, which is the most calorie-dense organ in the shark's body, and removes it with a precision that researchers describe as almost surgical. They take the liver, they leave the rest. This is not opportunistic predation. It is targeted. It is efficient. It requires knowing that the shark has a liver, knowing where it is, knowing how to access it, and knowing that the rest of the animal is not worth the energy of consuming it. It is the behavior of an animal that has thought about this problem and arrived at an optimal solution. The brain, 15 pounds, the second largest brain of any cetacean after the sperm whale. But raw size is a poor measure of cognitive capacity. It is the organization of the brain that determines what it can do, and the orca's brain organization is, in several specific ways, unlike anything else that has been studied. The paralimbic lobe, the brain region that is unusually developed in dolphins and cetaceans generally, and absent in most other mammals, including humans, appears to be associated with processing social and emotional information in ways that go beyond what the limbic system alone can handle. The exact function is still being characterized, and the honest answer is that we do not fully understand what this brain region does. What the research suggests is that cetacean social and emotional lives may be more complex, more nuanced, and processed through different neural architecture than mammalian social and emotional lives on land. What this means practically is that orcas may experience their social bonds, their family relationships, their group membership in ways that are quantitatively and qualitatively different from what most mammals experience, more intense, more processed, more central to their cognitive life. This is speculative. The neuroscience of cetacean cognitions is genuinely difficult and genuinely incomplete, but it provides context for what behavioral research has documented. Orca pods are matrilineal. They are organized around the mother, and the relationships within the pod, particularly between mothers and adult sons, last for the animal's entire life. An adult male orca does not leave his mother's pod. He stays, he hunts with her, he sleeps near her, he spends his life in her company. Research has shown that adult male orcas whose mothers die have significantly elevated mortality rates in the years following, a phenomenon so consistent that researchers have called it the grandmother effect, because it also appears to work in reverse. Pods with living grandmothers have higher survival rates for calves than pods without them. The grandmother is not just present, she is contributing. Her knowledge of where prey is at different times of year, of hunting techniques, of the geography of the pod's range accumulated over decades, is being transmitted to the younger animals around her. When she dies, that knowledge dies with her, and the pod suffers measurably for its absence. Orcas also appear to grieve. In 2018, a female orca in the Pacific Northwest, designated J35, known to researchers as Tahlequah, gave birth to a calf that died within 30 minutes. She carried the calf's body at the surface for 17 days, covering over 1,000 miles while balancing the dead calf on her rostrum, refusing to let it sink. She was observed in apparent distress throughout. The behavior generated significant media coverage and significant scientific discussion about what it means for our understanding of cetacean emotional experience. The honest scientific answer is that we cannot definitively characterize what Tahlequah was experiencing. What we can say is that the behavior had no survival function, that it persisted for 17 days over 1,000 miles, and that it looked in every observable way like mourning. The captivity story cannot be told without SeaWorld, and the SeaWorld story cannot be told honestly without acknowledging that it began with genuine scientific enthusiasm. In 1964, a killer whale was captured off the coast of British Columbia, initially for the purpose of creating a life-size model for a Vancouver museum. The animal survived the capture. It was put on public display. People were astonished at the animal, which the public had known primarily as a feared predator associated with attacks on fishing boats and livestock, was large, dramatic, apparently interactive, and seemed to respond to human presence. The captive orca industry grew from that accidental beginning. SeaWorld opened its first facility in San Diego in 1964. Orca capture operations expanded across the Pacific Northwest and Iceland through the 1960s and 1970s. The performances developed, the jumps, the splashes, the trainers riding on the rostrum, and the audiences came in enormous numbers. For many people of a certain generation, SeaWorld was their first and most vivid encounter with a large marine mammal. What was not being communicated to those audiences was what was happening to the animals. Wild orcas live in multi-generational family pods. They spend their lives in ranges that can span thousands of miles. They are acoustically rich social beings whose communication systems, whose dialects, whose relationships are built around lifelong contact with specific other individuals in specific acoustic environments. The average life expectancy of a wild female orca is in the range of 50 to 90 years. A wild male, shorter lived, averages around 30 years. Individual wild orcas have been identified and followed by researchers for decades. In captivity, orcas from different populations with different dialects, different social structures, different cultural identities were housed together in enclosures that were, by any meaningful measure of the animal's cognitive and social needs, profoundly inadequate. The dorsal fin collapse seen in virtually all captive males, a flaccid, sideways falling dorsal fin that appears in fewer than 1% of wild males, became normalized as an image of the captive orca. It is caused by the combination of reduced activity, altered swimming patterns, and the physics of a fin unsupported by the constant lateral movement of open water swimming. The aggression was the part that the public eventually could not be kept from knowing. In the wild, orcas have never been documented killing a human, injuring, yes, in a small number of cases in contexts that appear to involve mistaken identity or defensive behavior. Killing in the historical record of human-orca interaction in the wild, 0 confirmed cases. In captivity, between 1991 and 2010, 4 people were killed by captive orcas. The most documented case, the death of trainer Dawn Bryan Show at SeaWorld Orlando in 2010, witnessed by park visitors and captured on surveillance footage, generated the investigation, the documentary, and the public reckoning that the industry had been avoiding for decades. The documentary that followed, Blackfish, released in 2013, is the most consequential piece of wildlife filmmaking in the history of the form in terms of direct institutional impact. SeaWorld's attendance declined sharply after its release. The company's stock price fell, legislative hearings were held, and in 2016, SeaWorld announced it would end its theatrical orca shows and phase out its captive breeding program. The killer whale that had made SeaWorld was ending SeaWorld. This is Earth Wild Animal. I want to be straight with you. This channel is new. I'm building it from the ground up, and making these videos is genuinely something I care about. If this is the content you're looking for, the real story, the one behind the branding and the documentaries, subscribe. I post every single week. One click and you won't miss the next one. It means more than you know to a channel just starting out. The captive orca situation today is not resolved. SeaWorld retains captive orcas that cannot be released. Animals born in captivity who have never learned to hunt, whose immune systems are not calibrated for wild conditions, who do not have the cultural knowledge their wild counterparts inherit through years of learning from experienced family members. These animals cannot be simply returned to the ocean. They would not survive. The question of what to do with them has no clean answer. Seaside sanctuaries, large sea-fed enclosures where captive orcas could live in conditions closer to natural without the performance requirements have been proposed and debated. The costs are significant. The logistics are complex. The animals themselves, habituated to human contact and to the routine of captive life, present unknowns about how they would respond. The orca that has been used to teach children to love the ocean is also the animal that demonstrates most clearly the limits of what captivity can do to a highly intelligent, highly social, culturally complex being. The gap between what the orca is and what the tank contains is too large to bridge. Somewhere off the coast of Norway, a pod of orcas is working a herring school. 7 animals, 4 adults, 3 juveniles. The adults have been circling the school for 20 minutes, gradually compressing it toward the surface, working in coordination so precise that researchers who have spent careers watching this describe it as choreography. The juveniles are positioned where they can see every movement the adults make. A tail slap from the largest female, the herring ball tightens. Another from the male on the opposite side. The stunned fish begin to show at the surface. The juveniles move in. They are learning. They have been watching this technique since they were calves. They will watch it dozens more times before they are trusted to contribute to the compression phase. They will teach it eventually to their own calves. This knowledge, where the herring are in November, how to compress a school, when to tail slap and when to wait, these specific acoustic signals that coordinate the movement will travel forward in time through this pod for as long as the pod survives. It is not in their genes, it is in their relationships, in the accumulated experience of the grandmother who has been running this route since before any of the juveniles were born. It is culture. Operating in the North Atlantic, 7 animals in the dark water off a Norwegian coast. The killer whale is not a whale. It is not Shamu. It is not the friendly black and white animal of the performance tank. It is the most culturally complex apex predator that has ever existed in the ocean. It made the great white shark afraid. It carries its dead for 17 days and 1,000 miles. It teaches its children to hunt through years of deliberate instruction. It speaks in dialects that differ between populations separated by the same ocean. And somewhere off the Farallon Islands, a great white shark that has held its feeding territory for 3 seasons feels something change in the water. It leaves. It doesn't come back for 6 weeks. This was Earth Wild Animal. Subscribe, one click every week. See you next time. Peace.